Have you ever walked into a Harley dealership and wondered how that price tag got so high? Well, the truth just leaked, and it's a gut punch. Confidential dealer cost sheets hit the internet last week, showing what Harley dealers really pay for those bikes. A $29,000 Road Glide? Dealers get it for around $21,000. Riders who trusted the brand are furious. And the old paying for pride line doesn't ride anymore. This leak didn't just shake Harley, it cracked open the whole industry. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what every dealer's been hiding in plain sight. The leak that shook the motorcycle world. Harley didn't just make news, it detonated it. Out of nowhere, internal dealer cost sheets exploded across the internet, showing exactly what dealers really pay for Harley-Davidson motorcycles. In a single night, a century of sales secrecy went up in smoke. The shock wasn't just about dollars, it was about trust. Riders who thought they knew the system suddenly realized how deep the markup really ran. Forums went wild, dealers scrambled, Harley's corporate offices went silent. What leaked wasn't gossip, it was arithmetic, hard and undeniable. For decades, the Harley mystique lived in what people didn't know, the hidden margins, the sacred price tags. But the truth rolled out like an unchained camshaft, loud, unstoppable, and impossible to tune back down. This wasn't a rumor, it was a revelation. The brand that defined premium suddenly found itself naked under fluorescent light, every number laid bare. And riders everywhere were asking the same question: what were we really paying for all these years? The answer wasn't in the chrome or the sound, it was buried in spreadsheets. For the first time ever, riders saw exactly what loyalty had cost them, and the shockwave is still rolling through every dealership door. The explosion no one saw coming. The moment the leak hit, the market flinched. Harley's competitors, Honda, Indian, Yamaha, Kawasaki, didn't even have time to react before the story ripped through the industry. Dealers were blindsided. Some tried to deny it, others whispered off the record that it was true. Within 48 hours, showroom floors turned into interrogation rooms. Customers weren't browsing anymore, they were quoting invoices. The myth of mystery pricing was gone, and in its place stood cold, clear math. What Harley did, intentionally or not, changed everything. It exposed the underbelly of motorcycle economics, the difference between what's built, what's sold, and what's believed. Buyers now walked in holding power instead of hope. The psychology of the sale had flipped overnight. One veteran salesman said it best: "You can polish the chrome, but you can't polish the truth." Stock prices jolted. Industry analysts called it a transparency quake. But for Harley's loyal base, it felt personal. For decades, they'd paid top dollar because owning a Harley meant pride. Now, it meant paperwork. And yet, that brutal honesty drew in a new kind of respect. Riders wanted answers, not apologies. This wasn't just a financial leak, it was cultural detonation. Harley hadn't merely shaken the market, it had shattered the illusion of untouchable pricing forever. If you're into real rider stories and want the truth behind what's happening inside the motorcycle world, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below. What's the biggest truth you think the industry's not telling us? Let's get that conversation going. Inside Harley's price machine, breaking down Harley's pricing structure is like pulling apart a Milwaukee 8-layer afterlayer of polished complexity, hiding something very simple. The base cost begins at the factory: raw materials, assembly, paint, testing. Then come logistics, shipping bikes across states, warehousing, insurance, freight, add in dealer incentives, regional advertising funds, and event sponsorships. And the true build cost of a motorcycle gets buried beneath paperwork. On paper, the difference between dealer invoice and retail might look like a fair buffer. But when you trace it line by line, much of that gap has less to do with bolts and metal and more to do with branding. A large chunk funds corporate image. The rallies, the sponsorship banners, the curated lifestyle Harley sells as much as the motorcycles themselves. That image has real weight, but it's not something you can ride. For decades, Harley's myth and markup coexisted because riders believed the price reflected craftsmanship, not theater. The leak shattered that faith. Heritage became a line item, pride reduced to profit. The brand that sold freedom now looked taxed by truth. Riders saw spreadsheets where soul once lived. That was the breaking point, the moment pride met profit, and realized one was real metal, the other just polished illusion. Inside headquarters, the pressure reached boiling point, and when corporate panic sets in, the next move is always the same: control the narrative. Real riders ride, prepared check the description for the gear and accessories that keep me on the road. Corporate damage control. Within days, Harley's media department released a short, carefully worded statement about confidential business materials shared without authorization. It avoided admitting authenticity, avoided denying it, and said nothing concrete at all. Dealers, meanwhile, received internal memos with talking points, emphasize the brand's craftsmanship, redirect price discussions to financing offers, and never comment on leaked documents. But in the digital age, silence sounds guilty. Riders compared the memos with the spreadsheets and found the corporate spin hollow. One Wisconsin dealer leaked the memo itself, and the phrase "maintaining brand value through premium positioning" became an instant meme. Riders mocked it, rewriting it as "maintaining markups through silence." Across garages and forums, anger mixed with disappointment. Riders didn't resent profit, they resented spin. Harley spoke of brand value. Riders demanded honesty. Press releases felt hollow, while discussions turned raw and real. Many felt fooled, others unshaken. The company tried containment, but the story escaped. By the time Harley promised an internal review, judgment was done. The verdict wasn't about money, it was about trust, authenticity, and truth reclaimed. But the fire didn't burn longest in Milwaukee. It burned under the fluorescent lights of every dealership in America. When buyers walk in with the numbers. The first thing dealers noticed was the tone. Customers who once walked in with questions now came in with printouts. They carried screenshots of those leaked cost sheets, sometimes folded in their back pockets, sometimes saved on their phones. They weren't guessing anymore. They knew the invoice price, and they wanted to know why a bike that cost the dealer $21,000 was being listed at $29,000. It changed everything about how a sale began. A dealer from Missouri described it like this: they used to ask about colors. Now, they ask for receipts. The old rhythm of selling starting with chrome options, moving to financing, closing with a handshake collapsed overnight. Every conversation turned into an audit. The sales floor, once a place of excitement, now felt like cross-examination. Buyers quoted online sources, challenged setup fees, and questioned the cost of freight. For decades, Harley's aura was that you paid more because it meant something. After the leak, paying more just meant you hadn't seen the spreadsheet. Morale collapsed fast. Dealers tried to smile, but pride turned to math. Once the myth cracks, it's hard to sell the shine, one said. Test rides ended with calculators, not grins. Passion gave way to proof, and trust bled out quietly. And when emotions meet arithmetic, the only thing left to do is face the math head-on, and that's where the real pain began. The brutal math of the showroom. Behind every gleaming showroom floor lies a tangle of spreadsheets, loans, and invisible deadlines. Dealers don't buy bikes on faith. They buy them on credit through what's called a floor plan loan. That means the moment a bike is shipped from the factory, interest starts ticking. Every day a bike sits unsold is a slow leak from the dealer's pocket. A big Harley can cost $25,000 on paper, but if it sits for months, the profit margin shrinks faster than rubber on a hot road. A dealer typically makes 15 to 20% on a sale, sometimes less. On a $30,000 touring model, that might mean a profit of only $4,000 or $5,000 before expenses. From that, they still have to cover rent, staff pay, electricity, insurance, and advertising. When customers walked in armed with dealer cost numbers, those slim margins felt even thinner. Negotiation turned into defense, every discount cut into survival. Freight fees, those mysterious add-ons, finally made sense. Dealers paid hundreds per bike for transport, setup, and display costs that never showed on tags. The leak exposed it all, but solved nothing. "It's like showing your wallet before the deal," one Texas manager said. Transparency stripped away illusion, leaving only pressure. Some called it overdue honesty. Others called it survival math. Either way, small-town dealers carried the weight alone. The cracks were showing everywhere, especially in the family-run stores that once served as the backbone of Harley's empire. Small-town dealers fight to breathe. Drive through Wisconsin, Missouri, or Texas, and you'll find them, dealerships with fading brick fronts, family names on the sign, and decades of photographs on the wall. These are not corporate showrooms. They are community hubs where every handshake still matters. When the leak broke, it hit these shops hardest. They didn't have investor backing or diversified revenue streams. What they had was reputation, and that suddenly wasn't enough. In one Wisconsin town, a second-generation dealer said his phone rang nonstop for 2 weeks. Customers wanted answers, and some wanted refunds on bikes purchased the year before. He tried explaining overhead costs, financing charges, and corporate quotas, but explanations don't erase betrayal. "They thought we were pocketing the difference," he said. "Truth is, we're just trying to keep the lights on." Small shops fought to survive, shifting to service work oil changes, tires, brakes, just to stay afloat. Mechanics became heroes, custom work returned, and used bikes kept lights on. These weren't greedy dealers. They were riders surviving chaos. Many had sold Harleys longer than executives had worked. The leak didn't expose greed, it exposed fragility, showing how one spreadsheet could shake the industry and endanger 1,000 honest livelihoods. But crisis breeds creativity, and the survivors didn't wait for Milwaukee to save them. They started writing their own playbook, the new survival playbook. The dealers who adapted first weren't the biggest, they were the most grounded. They knew the business had changed forever, so they stopped hiding the math. A few brave owners started telling customers straight up what their costs were and how much margin they needed to stay afloat. It built trust again. Riders respected honesty even more than discounts. The first lesson of the new era was simple. Transparency could sell better than secrecy. Next came diversification. With bike margins collapsing, dealers doubled down on accessories, apparel, and maintenance contracts. Selling a helmet, jacket, or extended service plan often brought more profit than a new motorcycle. Financing became another battlefield. Dealers partnered with local banks instead of relying solely on corporate credit programs, allowing them to offer flexible rates and fewer hidden fees. The smarter ones bundled services: buy a bike, get ye discounted labor for a year. It wasn't glamour, it was grit. Dealers fought back online, using the same platforms that exposed them. They posted full-price breakdowns, hosted live Q&A streams, and turned confrontation into conversation. Riders gained power, walking into showrooms, armed with knowledge instead of doubt. Honest dealers stood out. The sharks sank fast. The leak destroyed the old playbook, but from its ashes came integrity. Dealers adapted, riders united, and culture finally overtook cash as the real currency. What began as a fight over dollars was turning into something far deeper. A question about what it truly means to be part of the Harley Brotherhood. Riders run the numbers. The shock that started in boardrooms and showrooms finally reached the garages. Across every online forum, riders began dissecting the leaked dealer sheets, like detectives studying evidence. YouTube creators, Facebook groups, and long-running Harley pages lit up with commentary. Some owners posted screenshots beside photos of their bikes, adding sarcastic captions like, "Guess I paid for the paint twice." Others went silent, stunned by what they saw. Every corner of the riding community had something to say. The loyalists called it overblown, claiming people were ignoring what it costs to keep a dealership running. The skeptics called it proof of what they had suspected for years. A few veterans felt vindicated after decades of warning that the company had priced itself beyond reach. What united them all was a single feeling. This time, the truth wasn't rumor or opinion. It was math. The uproar spread fast. Riders from every brand compared markups, posting videos, breaking down invoices against MSRP. What began with Harley became a movement about trust. This wasn't rebellion, it was riders doing what they've always done, verifying the details themselves. The same precision once used on carburetors now dissected pricing. The year's biggest customization wasn't chrome or exhaust. It was truth, rebuilt and tuned by the riders themselves. But when truth enters a culture built on image, something deeper happens. The lines between generations start to show. The Great Divide. Every revolution needs an argument, and this one split the Harley family right down the middle. On one side were the older touring riders, men and women who had spent decades building loyalty. To them, Harley was more than a brand, it was an heirloom. They'd ridden through every recession, every redesign, and every corporate rebrand, defending the motor company through thick and thin. Seeing those leaked numbers felt like a betrayal of faith. They weren't angry because bikes cost money. They were angry because loyalty was supposed to buy respect, not surprise. On the other side stood the newer riders, first-time buyers, younger professionals and commuters who had always seen Harley as out of reach. They viewed the leak as an opportunity, proof that the company could finally become more transparent and accessible. If it means more people get to ride American, that's a good thing, one rider said in a viral video. To them, the scandal wasn't the end of Harley pride. It was the beginning of a new, honest era. A generational canyon split the culture. Older riders guarded heritage as sacred. Younger ones saw it as something to share. Neither was wrong, but both felt unheard. Online clashes flared, accusations of disrespect on one side, gatekeeping on the other. Harley's identity stood at a crossroads: earned pride or open brotherhood. The debate wasn't about price, it was about who defines what being a Harley rider truly means today. And beneath that generational tension was an even more personal question. What does pride look like when the veil of mystery is gone? The pride test. For decades, Harley ownership came with an unspoken contract. You paid more, you rode American, and that meant something. Pride wasn't printed on the invoice. It lived in the way riders talked about their bikes, in the sound that echoed through every open throttle. But when the leaked numbers surfaced, that pride met a test no one expected. Across garages and parking lots, riders asked themselves what their pride was really worth. Was it measured in miles or in money? Was it about belonging or about status? For many, the answer stung. The spreadsheets stripped away illusion and forced a reckoning between love of the brand and love of the ride. And for some, that realization turned into freedom. This wasn't the first time transparency tested pride. Guitarists learned their pricey Les Pauls used cheap wood. Gun collectors found imported parts, yet truth refined passion. Harley riders felt the same shift. Pride stopped being about luxury and started being about craftsmanship, miles, and grit. The leak stripped status away, leaving authenticity. Real pride survived, earned by hands, not wallets. And for the first time, riders saw equals, not price tags. But awareness alone isn't enough. In a world where every number is public, riders needed to know how to respond with strategy, not just emotion. If you've made it this far, you're the kind of rider who values truth over hype. Subscribe now and stay tuned for the next breakdown, because what's coming next could change how every rider looks at the open road, holding the line. Once the shock faded, a new attitude emerged, practical, deliberate, and grounded in hard-earned wisdom. Riders began sharing real tactics for navigating this new transparent world. They learned how to read invoice codes, how to spot inflated prep fees, and when to walk away from bad deals. Some even began coordinating locally, comparing dealer offers in private groups to keep each other informed. Knowledge became a weapon, not against Harley, but against manipulation. Resale timing became another lesson. Older riders who had planned to trade in their bikes suddenly reassessed the market. With everyone aware of true dealer costs, resale prices shifted, savvy owners listed early, capitalizing before depreciation hit harder. Younger riders learned that patience could save thousands. It wasn't just rebellion, it was adaptation. Transparency became power, not division. Informed riders weren't disloyal, they were independent, honoring Harley's roots. Outrage softened into reflection, and talk shifted from blame to solutions. Many urged Harley to own the truth, publish dealer margins, and rebuild trust through honesty. The mystique faded, replaced by clarity. Because the real American tradition isn't secrecy, it's straight talk, earned respect, and the open road that's always told the truth first. And while riders argued online, the bigger machines of politics, labor, and Wall Street started turning. Competitors smell blood. When a giant stumbles, everyone else smells opportunity. Within weeks of the Harley cost leak, rival manufacturers moved with surgical precision. Honda's marketing team launched a quiet campaign emphasizing value without illusion. Dealers began showcasing price transparency charts that spelled out freight, setup, and delivery costs in plain language. Indian Motorcycle, Harley's oldest rival, leaned into its heritage playbook, airing commercials about craftsmanship you can still believe in. The timing wasn't coincidence, it was strategy. Yamaha and Kawasaki joined the fray, not through advertising but through dealer-level tactics. Sales staff whispered comparisons, pointing to Harley's leaked invoices and reminding shoppers that our markup's half of theirs. The pitch was subtle but effective. Riders who had once walked into Harley showrooms now browsed elsewhere with curiosity instead of guilt. For the first time in decades, competitors weren't fighting Harley's legend, they were feeding off its silence. At trade shows, transparency replaced horsepower. Yamaha unveiled open pricing. Kawasaki launched a cost calculator, and honesty became the new competition. Harley's pain reshaped the market. Riders no longer bought rebellion, they bought truth. Rivals courted veterans seeking integrity over image, and the industry's tone shifted from prestige to practicality. Harley's rivals weren't laughing, they were learning. The new battlefield wasn't chrome or noise, it was credibility, trust, and truth. But while rival brands made marketing plays, the real heartache pulsed in the factories, where the men and women who built Harley's reputation wondered what would happen next. Labor and legacy. Inside Harley's plants in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, the mood was thick with unease. The leak wasn't just about prices, it was about people. For factory workers, the fear wasn't public anger, it was what management might do to restore profits. Every time rumors of outsourcing surfaced, anxiety rippled down the production lines. The men and women who had built Harleys for decades through recessions, recalls, and redesigns knew exactly how fragile loyalty could be when numbers take over. Union leaders began pushing for transparency, not just in pricing, but in job security. If the company expects riders to trust the brand again, one representative said, they should start by proving they trust the people who build it. The sentiment struck deep. These weren't just employees. They were craftsmen, welders, painters, and machinists who had poured pride into every tank and frame that left the factory floor. Harley's legacy lived in the heat of the line and the roar of a new V-twin, not in stock charts. Workers feared outsourcing would save money, but kill the soul. In factories, pride replaced politics. We don't build luxury, one said. We build identity. That identity now trembled as unions demanded security and executives stayed silent, knowing reinvention always has a price often paid by those who built it. And while the workers fought for security, another group of observers, those on Wall Street, saw something entirely different. A business opportunity. Wall Street's blind spot. To investors, the Harley leak looked less like a scandal and more like a spreadsheet correction. Within days of the uproar, analysts issued upbeat reports about untapped market potential and margin optimization opportunities. Stock tickers barely flinched. Executives reassured shareholders that transparency would drive efficiency. To them, it was all just data, but what they missed couldn't be charted. They saw price gaps, not trust gaps. They talked about unit growth, not cultural erosion. On paper, Harley could recover reduced costs, adjust pricing, and expand to new demographics. Yet those strategies ignored the core of what made Harley valuable in the first place: the emotional contract with riders. You can count units, but you can't count respect. Wall Street admired Harley's profits, but never its pulse. To traders, it was luxury stock. To riders, a symbol of belonging. Analysts praised resilience, while riders saw retreat, proof that spreadsheets can't measure soul. The brand sold meaning, not just machines. One investor warned, Harley's value rides on trust, not charts. Leadership now stood at a crossroads. Chase market approval or rebuild the faith that made legends. Yet even as executives and investors stared at graphs, the riders and dealers, those still on the ground, began carving out a new kind of rebellion, one built not on secrecy, but on honesty. The road ahead. As the dust settled, a strange calm replaced the noise. What had started as outrage began to evolve into reflection. Riders, dealers, and even rival brands realized that something larger had shifted the definition of rebellion itself. Once, rebellion meant chrome, noise, and attitude. Now it meant transparency, accountability, and respect for the truth. The modern rebellion wasn't about speed, it was about sincerity. Harley stood at a crossroads familiar to every American icon. It could deny the past and fade into nostalgia, or it could own the truth and rebuild. And rebuilding didn't mean reinventing it, meant returning to what made riders fall in love with the brand in the first place. Honesty, craftsmanship, and connection. The leak had stripped away illusions. But maybe that was necessary. You can't polish chrome until you see where the rust is. Across America, dealers turned transparency into power. We're not hiding anything, one said. Here's our cost, here's your price, here's our promise. Honesty replaced hype, and riders finally relaxed. Inside Harley, younger leaders pushed for open pricing, factory tours, and public trust. The leak wasn't a failure, it was a rebirth. Harley's truth reconnected it to what mattered most: riders, pride, and the unbreakable soul of American motorcycling. They said the leak hurt Harley. Maybe it saved it by reminding everyone who the company really answers to: the riders. Maybe this whole mess did Harley a favor. It reminded them, and us, what brotherhood really means. It's not about chrome or badges. It's about honesty, miles, and the people who still give a damn about the ride. The truth's out now, and that's power in our hands. If you've ever bought a Harley and wondered where your money really went, sound off in the comments. I read every one. Smash that, like if you stand for transparency, and subscribe to ride with us on the next breakdown.